All right, hi folks. So I'm getting ready to work on my explanatory paragraph for the short story 11. So there's a few things I'm going to want to have open to make this as easy as possible. So I've got open my explanatory notes page with all of my sentence frames. I have open my simile chart, right? So yours should be completed all the way out, right, with all your examples of the impacts of each simile. So I have that document open. And then I'm also going to want to have open the short story 11. So I'm going to need to look at that a bit too. So I've got that open here. I opened up the document, the 11 W's annotation and notes. So if you open that assignment, you have the story there. All right, so I'm going to hop over here so I can get started on my paragraph. So first I'm going to read the directions, follow along as the teacher, me, models how to use a drafting template to write one explanatory paragraph. Okay, so here's my prompt. That's the question I have to answer. Write one explanatory paragraph that answers the question, in the short story 11, what emotion does Sandra Cisneros want the reader to feel with her similes? Cool. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to have to decide which one of these similes you are going to write about. I am going to write about the first one here today because that's already the one that I did for you in class. So when you write your paragraph, you get to choose any of the other similes. So we're going to ask that you don't use the first one because that's the one the teacher did for you, but you can pick any of the other 6 similes from the story. So I'm going to use this simile that talks about the way you grow old being like an onion. I'm actually going to go over here and I'm going to try to find that in the text so I know where it is. I remember it's kind of at the beginning. All right, here we go. Because the way you grow old is kind of like an onion, so I know that that's there. I'm going to want to come back to this. I'm just going to bold that so it's easy for me to find. Okay, so now I'm going to get started. First, I need to write my topic sentence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose, so for each of these columns, I'm going to have some choices as I go. I can either use the sentence frames that are provided for me here, or there's always the option to create your own, right? If you're creating your own, that means that whatever you are coming up with is at least as good or better than the sentence frames that are provided. I'm going to go ahead for this one. I feel like using the middle one. So I'm going to actually delete the other one. So I have in the blank by blank, it is clear that. In the blank by blank, it is apparent that. I'm going to choose the second one. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and delete the other options. So in my topic sentence, I always need to include the title of the text. So in the short story, I'm getting anxious typing on camera, 11, by, and then we always need to include the author's name, by Sandra Cisneros. It is apparent that blank because blank. So this is where it's super important that my topic sentence has to respond to this prompt. So I have to determine what is the emotion she feels. So what did I say here? This simile helps the reader understand that Rachel is feeling weak and powerless because the younger parts of herself are still inside her, and usually when a person is young, they're weak and powerless. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to say, in the short story 11 by Sandra Cisneros, it is apparent that Rachel is feeling weak and powerless because the simile demonstrates that Rachel is feeling younger than she is. So what you'll notice here is I answered the question of how she's feeling, right? And for my because, I didn't give my full analysis yet. I didn't include the full example, like the full because that I have in this document, right? I didn't say all of this yet because that's what's going to come later in my analysis. I just kind of gave a basic example of why I know she's feeling that way. Okay, so up next I have to write my context. So that's where I'm getting the reader kind of prepared to read my evidence and to understand what was happening in the story without having read it. So this is going to be the only place in my paragraph where I put a little bit of summary. Okay, so I'm going to use, let's see, which one? Do I want to say in the beginning, according to the beginning, as stated in, I'm going to say I'm going to say in. I like in. So I'm going to delete these other ones. I'm going to say in. Okay, so now I need to figure out, is this the beginning, middle, or end of the story where my quote is from? So that's where I'm going to go back here, and it says, okay, so it's right here, and that to me is like definitely the beginning, right? So I see it here, so I can already do the first part. So I'm going to say in the beginning, so I can delete these because it's not the middle or the end, it's the beginning. In the middle of this, it's the story, right? So in the beginning of the story, so now I have to say, so remember, for my context, I need who, where, when, and what. Those are kind of like my goal. I want to kind of give all that information for the quote if it makes sense to provide it. So in the beginning of the story, so it's going to be like Rachel describes, Rachel explains. So I want to use my sentence frames. I'm not feeling ready to come up with my own yet. So I'm going to say in the beginning of the story, Rachel, I'm going to say she explains because I feel like this quote is kind of like her explaining what it's like to get older. So in the beginning of the story, I'm going to say it is, I'm going to make this lowercase because this is eventually all going to be one sentence. It is Rachel's